It's a beautiful day on the outside of Miller Park, but it's going to get a bit nipply tonight, so they've closed up the roof, and we're set for baseball. Opening game of this road trip, the first of 3 between the Reds and the Milwaukee Brewers. Hi again, everybody. Alongside Chris Welsh and Jim Day, I'm Tom Brenneman. Great to have you with us, as always, for Reds baseball on Fox Sports Ohio. And very early on this year, it's always a big night. We get excited to see this young left-hander, Amir Garrett, take the mound.
I think he surprised a lot of people, Tom, by his wherewithal on the mound, his stage presence. Maybe not his stuff, but the fact that he is just mowing down hitters, American League hitters included, with the Baltimore Orioles when he struck out 12 in 7 innings his last time out. And he does it in such a nonchalant fashion. After the game, he keeps his level head. It's been a pleasure to be around. He's really a pleasure to watch. Let's hope he's able to continue this little string he's got going on.
And you see his first 3 starts, all of them have just been sensational, beginning in St. Louis, right through to Pittsburgh, Baltimore. Now the first time he faces a Brewers team, which, Chris, is among the very best offensive teams in all of Major League Baseball.
Well, you're right about that. I mean, they lead the National League in home runs, extra base hits, slugging. The Reds were 7-2 when they took on the Brewers, and the Brewers came to Cincinnati. They probably lost 2 out of 3 to the Brew Crew, and they bludgeoned the baseball. I mean, they hit a lot of home runs. There's no doubt about that. But Garrett's a guy that keeps the ball down in the zone. So you wonder if good pitching will stop good hitting. It usually does. That may be the case tonight.
And you get a look at a guy that at one time you thought would have a real big-time career, and that's Matt Garza.
Well, they thought he was going to have a big-time career here in Milwaukee, and they've gotten virtually nothing for their investment in Matt Garza. He's on his last year of a 4-year deal. They hope that now he's finally coming out of the gate here. He was injured in his last spring training start, and he was not able to pitch until tonight. So, you know, they don't know much about him right now. Neither do the Reds. We'll see. Garza supposedly a little bit more control, a little less fastball. We'll see if he's able to adapt. He is on the last year of a contract. That always seems to motivate these guys just a little bit more.
All right, when we come back, we will check in with our main man, Jim Day. The first and only Reds road trip so far this year was a good one. Jim will have that story when we return to Reds baseball on Fox Sports Ohio.
brought to you by Chevy. Check out our award-winning lineup only at your Tri-State Chevy dealer. By True Green, America's #1 professional lawn care company. Live life outside. And by Skyline Chili. Feeling good? It's Skyline time. One of the tailgating capitals of the world, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, first of 3 with the Brewers. After a not-so-successful homestand, maybe it's a good omen for the Reds to get back on the road, because last time out, the only road trip was a great one. 5-1 trip through Pittsburgh and St. Louis, 6 runs per game. They hit 9 home runs. They had a team ERA of 2.38, and keep in mind, that included giving up 10 runs and the only loss on that trip. It was an outstanding roadie, which brings us to our IGS bringing the energy. Red-hot hitters on the last road trip, and they hope to carry this over. Suarez led the way with a .526 average and 8 runs driven in. Cozart, Hamilton, Peraza, Duvall, all hot bats. What will we get tonight? We'll find out together. It's the Reds and Brew Crew going at it here at Miller Park. Tom Brenneman and Chris Welsh standing by with all the play-by-play action on Fox Sports Ohio.
Wisconsin, the first of 3. We'll have the first 2 games of this series for you right here on Fox Sports Ohio. Not the day game on Wednesday. Take a peek at the National League Central Division standings. Reds a half game behind Chicago. Cubbies, by the way, have already scored 4 runs in the first inning in the series opener at Pittsburgh. St. Louis just finished off a sweep of the Brewers, capped off yesterday. Brewers beat the Reds 3 out of 4 in Cincinnati. So Brian Price and company thinking about revenge here tonight on the Brewers' home turf. And the Reds lineup presented by Menards. It'll be Billy Hamilton, Jose Peraza, Joey Votto to start it. Adam Duvall in left field. Eugenio Suarez at third, and Scott Schebler a good day yesterday in right. A latter third of Zach Cozart. Stuart Turner behind the plate. And on the mound it is Amir Garrett, and starting at 4. Milwaukee Brewers, boy, they have paid this guy a king's ransom, and he has done next to nothing during the term of this contract. Been in the big leagues a long time. Mazda numbers on Matt Garza.
At the time they signed Matt Garza to that contract, he was the most money that they had ever spent on one player, going back to what they had done for Jeff Sappan, a 4-year, $52 million contract. So Garza's been injured. He's had a guy that was once a hard thrower and go right after hitters with pretty much all fastballs. He's had to adjust his pitching style a little bit. We'll see if he's able to do that here in 2017.
He's 33 years old as Garza. First pitch swinging, and that'll find a hole into right field. We're underway, and a good start for the Redlegs. A base hit by Billy Hamilton, who's 9 of 10 in stolen base attempts this year.
I can tell you that when Billy Hamilton gets up board, if you watch Matt Garza's reaction, I mean, it is just such a matter of disappointment. You can see his shoulders just drop. It's like, oh no, this changes everything about the first inning now. I got to worry about Hamilton bouncing off first base. He's probably going to steal second. Then I got to worry about him stealing third base. Although Garza's been pretty good over the years, he has had Jonathan Lucroy behind the plate. The guy that got back there tonight, Manny Pena, very good.
Billy had a base hit to lead off the game yesterday, stole second and third, and wound up scoring on a fly ball by Joey Votto, and that 7-5 Reds win over Chicago. Now Peraza. 16 hits, 74 at bats without a home run, 3 doubles, 4 knocked in. He's only walked twice all year. And there goes Billy. Pitch taken. Throw way off the mark into center field, and Hamilton tries to get up, and they're going to call interference on the defender. Or are they? Or obstruction, I guess, on the defender. So Hamilton got to third anyway, but the umpire immediately there, Chad Whitson, pointed to VR.
Well, he just got a huge lead, and you knew Manny Pena just kind of really rushed his throw. And when he got up to go to third base, that's when the fielder got in his way. A runner gets obstructed, a fielder is interfered with. So as soon as Whitson saw that, he just go ahead and pointed to the obstruction call. Since there was a play being made on him, it's obstruction A if you want to get technical, and he gets third base.
That's why you are the rules guru.
I get them wrong sometimes, but I get corrected on Twitter.
Infrequently. Well, all the answers are on Twitter. We've already talked about that.
Now you've got to figure out a way to get the ball into the air or to one of the middle infielders.
And Peraza hooks it down the left field line, but foul. Good play down there. Young man brought his glove, a left-hander. That fellow right there. I mean, you talk about being dad of the year. Look at those two kids beaming. Dad just reached out there like he owned it. Check this out. Right out of the gate opening inning.
Got a first baseman's glove.
Look at the kids. And Peraza chases a ball in the dirt. And he's the first out of the inning. Gordon will stay at third base. Look at the Brew Crew on defense. Presented by Ford. Same outfield we saw in Cincinnati. And by and large, the same infield with the exception of Perez down at third in place of Shaw. And Manny Pena, part of a rock-solid catching duo, along with Jet Bandy the early part of this year for the Brewers. They've done a nice job. Now Joey Votto. He's knocked in 6 runs in his last 2 games. 5 of them in the loss on Saturday. Had a sac fly run batted in to score Hamilton in the opening inning yesterday. Overall, Joey 16 hits and 70 at bats, 6 home runs, 15 driven in, has 4 doubles. And he has Hamilton at third with 1 out here in the Reds opening inning. Very good numbers for Votto, but that's pretty much a story against this entire Milwaukee Brewers team through the years. Votto has owned this team unlike any other. 141 career appearances against Milwaukee. Votto has 30 home runs and 96 batted in, his highest totals versus any other opponent.
That's the old bread and butter pitch for Garza right there. Four-seam fastball up around the letters. At one time he was a very hard thrower, not around 97 or 98, but he threw hard enough and consistently enough up in the zone. He got a lot of fly balls. That was back when he was with the Minnesota Twins, Tampa Bay, and a few years with the Cubbies.
Home plate umpire is a crew chief, Sam Holbrook. I think Garza was hoping he'd get that call. Instead, it's 3-2. We told you Whitson at second, Jim Wolf the umpire at first, and Greg Gibson down at third.
A couple of Kentucky guys in that group, Greg Gibson and Sam Holbrook.
Well, you have part ownership in the Commonwealth. You were a Kentucky resident.
And I had two daughters that went to University of Kentucky, and I got
spent a lot of money in the Commonwealth.
Yeah,
right. And now you have some ownership in Wisconsin.
I do indeed, yeah.
Up in Madison.
It's a town that you may end up visiting here in the fall for a little NCAA football.
We'll see.
Madison,
Wisconsin. That's a good spot.
It's a little chilly up there in the wintertime.
Yes, it does. It gets mighty chilly right here in the wintertime. It's a different kind of cold.
Oh, yes, it is.
3-2 again on Votto. Hamilton at third with one out. Started 2, laid off, ball 4.
Well, you can see in that at bat that Garza was not about to give in. I mean, he still now with one out has hope that he can get out of this inning with no runs scored at all. That would probably be the easiest for him if he gets a double play ball out of Adam Duvall.
Duvall has hit his first rough stretch of this season. He had the 0 for 13 string, and it was snapped when he clubbed that grand slam against Baltimore. Now, he was given the day off yesterday after striking out 4 times in 5 at-bats on Saturday. Strike 1.
Well, he started off so hot. He had 5 hits in his first 3 ball games. That was against, of course, the Philadelphia Phillies. He was driving runs in. He's got 14 runs batted in. But a little bit of a drought. Last time he had that 5 RBI game against the Baltimore Orioles, he's only had 1 or 2 since.
And quickly, Adam behind at no balls, 2 strikes. So the runners, Hamilton at third, and at first it is Votto, 1 out, and the 0-2 to Duvall. We'll do it again. Brewers 73 and 89 a season ago. They had that terrible start last year. At the end of April, they were 8 and 15, so they're playing much better this year than they did last year. They come in 2 games under 500. Greg Counsell beginning his 3rd full year as skipper. Born and raised in this town. Grew up about 10 minutes north of this ballpark. His father for a number of years worked for the Brewers, and Counsell had an excellent major league career. Played on a pair of World Series champions in Florida and Arizona.
You know, he can probably empathize a lot with what Brian Price is going through. With the exception, he's got a little bit more, I guess, guarantee going forward with his contract. But they're both in a rebuilding process. They both have good farm systems. The Brewers have an excellent farm system when it comes to position players, especially outfielders, which is one reason why there's been a lot of banter and talk about Ryan Braun being traded to the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Still 0-2 on Duvall. And Garza the pause, and here it comes. Got him swinging for the second out of the inning.
You know, when all else fails, you go back to your bread and butter, and that's what Garza does. I mean, they've been trying to talk him into being a ground ball pitcher and stay down in the zone, but that pitch right there has been so good for him for a long time. He's had 262, or make it 3 now, starts in the major leagues. Overall, his record 10 games under 500 at 87 and 97. They hope to squeeze a little value out of him this year, because right now they're averaging $2.5 million per win since they signed him to that contract.
Well, here's a Eugenio Suarez now with 2 outs. And Votto takes off for second base, and they're not going to take the chance of throwing down there and Hamilton breaking for the plate. That's Joey's steal of second.
That's really unusual, because at the major league level, everybody has enough arm to be able to throw the ball 130 feet on a line, even to catch a guy running as fast as Billy Hamilton. I wonder if that was somewhat of a surprise there by Votto that caught him flat-footed.
It's his first steal in 2 attempts, so now a couple of runners in scoring position for Suarez. 1 ball and 1 strike. Man, has this guy been good. His last 14 games, a .404 batter with 5 home runs and 12 runs batted in. Had a 2-homer game against the Cubs on Saturday. Garza beating a lot of hitters with that fastball right now. Duvall was tardy a couple of times off to the first base side, and Suarez was there, and it's 1-2.
Yeah, it just seems like they're a click behind. Garza seems like one of those pitchers that makes his fastball seem faster than it really is.
Look at those numbers on that first road trip for Suarez. Of course, as Jim Day told you a moment ago, the entire team was lights out through Pittsburgh and St. Louis.
Boy, was that ever a good pitch. I mean, he was going away, and then decides to come right inside on Suarez. Suarez beats it right off of his shin.
Hamilton started the game on the first pitch with a base hit, stole second, went to third on a throwing error. He was there with nobody out. Peraza struck out. Votto walked. Duvall struck out. And now the Reds leaning heavy on their third baseman. And Garza will get out of the jam. Runner at third, nobody out. And the Reds come up empty. Amir Garrett gets the ball when we come back. can really hit their lineup presented by Menards. VR off to a slow start. Thames is not. Braun in left, Santana in right, Pena behind the plate, Perez at third, Broxton, Arcia, Garza the latter third. 2-1, making his 4th major league start. He has been sensational so far, and he is Amir Garrett.
Yeah, that might be an understatement. Sensational, because as good as he has been, he has done it almost without breaking a sweat.
First pitch and a hold it short. Got to cut it loose. VR can run. 1 pitch, 1 out.
Quick release by Kozar made that look easy.
Well, he's such a solid defender, isn't he? I mean, when he's not around, it's not to say anybody else can't play that spot, because Peraza's made some nice plays at shortstop this year. But Kozar's so steady, so dependable. Well, here is Eric Thames. Told the story when the Brewers were in Cincinnati. Came up to the big leagues, had failure, bounced around a number of different organizations, wound up in Korea for 3 years where he hit 40, 40, and 37 home runs, was a 40-40 player, winning an MVP award. The Brewers signed him, and who would have ever thought that this fella would do what he has done so far? .359 batting average, a major league high 8 home runs, slugging percentage of nearly .830.
You know, you just don't see about that many players coming over from Korea and making an impact as an everyday player the way that Thames has. There have been a few, but Thames is certainly a guy that stands out. And he says that his experience over there, because the average pitcher over there doesn't throw as hard as the average pitcher in the major leagues, but there's a lot of breaking balls. There's a lot of pitchers trying to fool you, and he took really notice of, and he learned how to hit the off-speed stuff like that.
Like that is right, and that's number 9.
Well, he got an off-speed pitch right here, and I think it was a curveball. And the third one in the at-bat that he gave Thames, and this one he hangs right in the wheelhouse. He threw him a really good 2-0 curveball, another really good one down in the zone that just missed, and then hung one. Anyway, the bottom line on Thames is that's what he said he learned how to do in Korea, hit the off-speed stuff.
Thames has homered in every game he has played against the Reds this season, and this is the 5th game. And one of the games at Great American Ballpark, the 3rd game of that 4-game series, he hit 2 in 1 game. So 6 of his first 9 home runs have come against Cincinnati pitching. 2 balls and a strike on Ryan Braun. 3-1. Braun has 6 home runs, 6 doubles, 13 knocked in.
Well, they're going to hit a lot of home runs. The Brewers normally do, and anytime you've got a lineup that is anchored by Ryan Braun, you are going to play a long ball. This ballpark is very good for hitters. You talk about visiting hitters. I mean, the Reds for years have been coming in here, and all the hitters just light up when they come in here. They just love the way the ball carries. They love the background. And I think they also like the fact that it is consistent as far as the temperature and the feel inside here. Sure. They close the roof almost every game in the spring and in the fall when it gets cool outside. You're guaranteed to play baseball, and it's just a real comfortable place for hitters to hit.
Well, they have a rule here. If it drops below 65 degrees, they close the roof. So, I mean, you're playing in ideal circumstances pretty much every day you come here. If it's a beautiful day outside, roof open. If it's not, or chilly, close it up. We told you that this is a slugging bunch. In fact, through the first 20 games, they've hit more home runs than any team in franchise history. Braun hanging around, still 3-2. They lead the major leagues with those 35 home runs. They lead the major leagues in extra base hits and total bases, and naturally in slugging percentage.
Braun is definitely not the hitter that slides up the bat a little bit with 2 strikes.
Amir fell down. That's a nice recovery there by Garza. And he throws out Braun for the second out of the inning. Garrett appears to be just fine. Take a look at the Reds on defense, presented by Ford. Hamilton flanked by Duvall and Scheffler. Regular cast of characters along the infield, and a rare start for Stuart Turner behind the plate, working with Amir Garrett. If I am not mistaken, in each of the first 3 games that Amir Garrett has thrown in the major leagues, 3 brilliant games, it's been Tucker Barnhart behind the plate. So I think when you hear that, the first question that many might ask is, you know, why would you fool with a good thing? Now, Tucker Barnhart started every game over the weekend against the Cubs, with Adelman on Friday night, with Cody Reed on Saturday, and then Bronson Arroyo yesterday.
Well, I think, Tom, that Brian Price is just trying to get Amir Garrett used to different people behind the plate, because hopefully very soon we will see Devin Mesoraco behind the plate, catching Amir Garrett as part of a regular rotation of catchers and pitchers that are going on this ball club.
I guess Mesoraco, that great play we showed you the other night where he went to cover third, and you know, they got an out on a play that was thrown to him. The runner slid in and sort of dinged up Mesoraco's knee. Now, he stayed in the game, played the next day, and then had a day off. But Jim Day, you have talked about a number of times already, we're getting closer and closer to that date where the Reds have to make a firm decision on whether or not they're going to call up Devin Mesoraco, correct?
Jim Day went to the bratwurst stand.
No, I'm right here.
Oh, there he is.
Brian Price said before the game, unless there's a need factor, meaning an injury, that we won't see Mesoraco in this Milwaukee series. They simply want to get him some more at bats, getting more comfortable at the plate. Everything is fine health-wise, but they do have to make a decision this week by Friday in St. Louis. So if all goes well, we will see him in St. Louis, and it's an interesting problem because there's not a person in this organization that wants to give Stuart Turner back the Rule 5 pick, so something needs to be worked out.
0-2 the count on Manny Pena.
Well, it's the first time in years that a Major League Rule 5 pick has made it this far, right? So you hope they're able to figure out something to do there. It'll be interesting to see what the Twins say.
It's the 5th start of the year for Turner behind the plate.
That move that Garrett has is still a work in progress, to say the least. His best move when he was in the minor leagues was a quick step-off move. But the word gets around pretty quickly about that, and that won't work very long here at the big league level. For a big guy, he's very compact and quick to the plate, though.
You know, the Brewers completely have overhauled that catching position. mean, for years and years and years, they had Jonathan Lucroy, an all-star, as their regular. Martin Maldonado backed him up. They dealt Lucroy, you may remember, the trade deadline last year, and then Maldonado during the winter. And they bring in Pena, they bring in Bandy. And man, these two guys are just knocking the cover off the ball. And there's another base hit by Pena on a 1-2 pitch. And that will send Santana on to third. Boy, what a start for Pena. That is his 17th hit in 38 at-bats.
It's a nice bit of hitting right there, taking the ball the way he did with some authority, really staying back on it. And well, that is the kind of swing that'll make a batting coach smile.
So one more out to get here now, and it's Perez. 7 hits and 39 at-bats. By far his best game of this season came in his only start in Cincinnati last week. And this ball is clubbed to straightaway center field. And it is gone. The Red scouting report is on Perez. They might want to burn it.
Well, it certainly isn't throwing the ball right down the middle on the first pitch with a fastball, because that's essentially what he got, and he drove it a long way.
Perez has 8 hits this entire season. 4 of them, including both of his home runs, have come against the Reds.
Well, you remember, he was the everyday third baseman last year. He played not every day, but I mean 123 games, 400 so at bats. So he was a guy that is used to playing a lot, and he had 13 home runs.
One hopper down to third, and a tough first inning for young Amir Garrett. 4-0 Milwaukee at the end of 1.
Ball break brought to you by T-Mobile. Congratulations to a couple of Reds minor leaguers for the Louisville Bats at AAA. Juan Perez, who had a pretty impressive during the spring. Second baseman is your International League Batter of the Week. 407 average, 3 doubles, a couple of home runs, and he's hit safely in 12 straight games, and we were expecting this at AA. Tyler Mahle, coming off of that perfect game Saturday, is your Southern League Pitcher of the Week. Took him just 88 pitches to retire 27 consecutive batters, and look at his record, 4-0, 0.68 ERA, and 4 starts. So we've talked about this plethora of young arms and that next tier down, guys like Tyler Mahle, Luis Castillo, hopefully with bright futures.
We're looking forward to seeing those two young men sooner rather than later, perhaps. Kind of starts both of them are off to already. All right, long way to go in this one. Big start for the Brewers. They get a couple of home runs, a 3-run bomb by Perez after the solo blast from Thames, and the Reds have work to do. Schebler fouls it away, 1 ball, 1 strike. There's 4 runs in the first inning. The exact same total from 3 starts that Garrett has allowed this year. Now Schebler is hoping and thinking that maybe yesterday will kind of kick him into gear offensively. He had a home run, a run-scoring single, 2 hits and 4 at-bats. Garrett hoping that offense can get it started against Garza after missing a chance in the first inning with a runner at third and nobody out. Reds failed to score. You may remember Schebler hit 145 in the month of April last year, was sent down to the minor leagues, and when they called him back, he hit 297 the rest of the way. By far his best month was in September. I mean, he just knocked the cover off the ball, and he's out swinging to begin the Reds' second inning. 3rd strikeout already for Matt Garza.
Now, Garza looks pretty strong tonight. He ought to be. He hasn't pitched really in since spring training. He did pitch some down in the minor leagues on his rehab down there. Quite frankly, didn't do very well if you're going to scout him by, you know, his numbers in Double-A and so on. But he's throwing the ball well tonight, locating it, and a firm fastball.
Now he'll turn his attention on the Red shortstop Zach Cozart. Off to another great start like he did last year. 20 hits, 63 at bats. That's a .370 average. On base percentage of nearly .445. Good breaking ball to even the count. So what Cozart did in that series when the Reds dropped 3 of 4 at Great American Ballpark to this team. It's interesting, both of these clubs have played very well on the road, and neither one has played very well at home. And that's a story for a lot of teams in the early part of this season around baseball. Reds are 5-8 at home, 5-1 on the road. Brewers are 6-3 on the road, but they've only won 3 of their 11 games here in Milwaukee. A long run for Thames and about 3 rows out of play. Cozart for the 3rd time this year was scratched from the lineup. That was yesterday with a sore left wrist. And remember, he did not play 2 of the games in Pittsburgh on that last trip with the same injury. For more on Cozart's day off, how about it, Jim Day?
Well, they had scheduled Zach Cozart Cozart to be off this Wednesday, a day game, but they simply moved it up because he was just beat up, not only his wrist, but other undisclosed areas on his body in which he just needed an off day, and they just moved it up, so expect him to play on Wednesday. But he says he feels great today and looks great right here.
Well, he's on his way to third, and he will get there easily with a one-out triple. That's already this season the 4th 3-base hit for Zach Cozart.
That was a good bit of hitting right there. The first thing that a lot of the Brewers people were asking me when we came to the ballpark today was, is Cozart still on fire? And the answer, yeah, you can see by that he is. Perfectly placed down the corner, adjusts his helmet. Here he comes to third. I don't know what the long-term plans are for Zach Cozart, whether they're considering signing him to a long-term deal, maybe putting him on the trading block if they have younger players, maybe less expensive down in the minor leagues. But he's proving to everybody in baseball he's healthy at 100% right now.
Runner at third, one out for Stuart Turner. Turner 2 hits and 15 at bats. He has 1 double and 1 run batted in.
Nice to get one of them back right here.
Turner's last start came against Baltimore. He struck out all 3 times up and twice looked at strike 3. 3-0. Well, with the pitcher on deck, you green light him here with a runner at third?
No.
All right. 3-1.
I think he'll get the same pitch on 3-1 that he'll get on 3-0, just because he's a new kid on the block, making his way through the major leagues for the first time, and he's batting 8th.
I mean, normally you never think a number 8 hitter gets a 3-0 green light. It looked like he did on the appeal. 3-2. But with a pitcher on deck,
that's what you learn as you get a little bit more experience. So on a 3-1 pitch, you never get caught with a check swing. You're either letting it air out or you're not swinging at all.
Cozart with a 1-out triple leads down at third, and the 3-2 pitch. And that ball is drilled into right center field. And that will go all the way to the wall. How about Turner? He drives in Cozart. He's in with a run-scoring double, and the Reds do indeed, Mr. Welsh, get one back.
I'll tell you what, for a short swing, and he really doesn't get his hands back very far. It's a really quick swing. Garza goes upstairs, and Stuart Turner showing him maybe that's not a good place to pitch in. That ball was really hit and goes over the head of the center fielder. That's about as simple as it can get there.
So 2 doubles, 2 runs batted in for Turner. Here's Amir Garrett, 0 for his first 7 as a batter in the big leagues. And he does not have a sacrifice bunt.
Milwaukee is expecting a bunt right here. At first they were having Orlando Arcia very close by, trying to hold him close right there, knowing you got the catcher running, and a bad bunt, maybe you can get the lead runner here. They're going to let him swing away.
2 away in the inning. And the runner, of course, stays put. Billy Hamilton will bat for the second time in as many innings. He led off the game with a single to right, stole second, an errant throw sent him to third. He was there with nobody out. And Garza was able to get out of the inning without a run scoring, stranding Hamilton at third and Votto at second base. Now Thames is playing pretty far back for a first baseman when Hamilton's at the plate. Perez right on the edge of the grass at third. And you have Turner at second with 2 away in the inning. Phillies showed a bunt, pulls the bat away, ball 1.
You know, Garza resembles John Lester a little bit in as much as he really doesn't like to throw the ball to bases. He will throw to first base a little bit, but on a bunt down the third baseline, he doesn't like that at all. If you go down the first baseline, he'll underhand it to first base.
That throw appeared to hit Turner and then dribbles into center field, so he's standing at third base. That's his second throwing error already in this game by Manny Pena.
Those are the kind of throwing errors that you really don't pay attention to if catchers have them, because this ball's just about on the money. It just happens to hit the runner as he's going back into the bag. You're trying to hit a shortstop on the run over the second base bag. I've always really considered errors on catchers something that you just pay no attention to at all.
Two balls and a strike on Hamilton. 3 balls and a strike. I just wonder about the upside on a play like that. You know, I mean, how many times really are you going to pick off a catcher at second base? I bet you could count on one hand how many times that's happened in the last 5 years. Hamilton pops up a 3-1 pitch. And this should end the inning. And it will. The Reds get one back. They trail after an inning and a half. 4-1. Storyline very early on. Facing the Brewers for the first time, they jump on Amir Garrett, a solo home run by Thames in the first inning. And later in the inning, a 3-run home run to straightaway center by Perez. 4 runs, 3 hits, and a walk against Amir Garrett after he had allowed a total of 4 runs combined his first 3 starts. First pitch swinging Arcia and lifts a fly ball at Shepard. And that's the way we start the bottom of the 2nd inning with the Brewers leading 4-1.
The home run hit by Eric Thames was the first hit that Amir Garrett has given up on his curveball this year. I think the opposing hitters or something like 0 for 8. When they either swung at it for the 3rd out or for the 3rd strike or put it in play.
Garza in his career not much of a hitter. He's a secret agent. Secret agent 079 reporting for duty. That means 19 hits and 239 at bats. Pretty good swing right there, though. He was 1 for 28 last year with 17 strikeouts.
That swing would looked a lot better with a ball on a tee. Then he wouldn't have been late.
Going on 3 pitches. And that's the first strikeout of the night for Mr. Garrett. RBI Baseball 2017 returns with fast pace, pick up and play, MLB action, all your favorite teams, players, ballparks, and so much more. Get RBI Baseball today. Learn more at RBIGame.com. 2 up, 2 down, 4-1. Brewers lead in the 2nd, and here's a leadoff man, VR, who grounded out to Cozart on the first pitch of the 1st inning.
Graphic.
Three 1 pitch, and that's ball 4. Second walk. And this one given up by Garrett, who in his 3 starts in 19 2/3 innings coming in and walked a total of 3. Thames homered his first time up, and that's a fastball strike on the outside edge. Amir Garrett, as you know, began his major league career with 12 scoreless innings over his first 2 starts, and he allowed that 2-run home run to David Freese against the Pirates in the 7th inning. Well, that started Pittsburgh. His 12-inning scoreless streak tying Billy Rhymes. And this ball is launched the other way. 2 at-bats, 2 home runs for Thames. 7 of his 10 home runs have come against the Reds in 4 games and 2 at-bats.
Boy, this guy is showing really some incredible power. The first home run he hit, you blame it on yourself if you're Amir Garrett because you hung him a breaking ball. But that time, even though the pitch was up, it was on the outer part of the plate. You make Thames go the other way. And a big and strong enough man to do that.
Well, the walk in front of him to VR gave Thames a chance to bat with a man aboard here in this second inning, and he makes the Reds pay for it. That is extraordinary. 10 home runs. And here we are on April the 24th, but of the 10, as we mentioned, 7 in 4 games and 2 at-bats against Reds pitching. He's had 2 two-homer games. And then 3 other games where he's hit 1 homer. And those are the only 2 multi-homer games of his major league career. Good play by Suarez. Shows off that strong arm, and that'll end the inning. But damage done again via the long ball. The slugging Brewers have opened a 6-1 lead. Be with you Saturday, May the 6th. Arrive early, be one of the first 20,000 fans to receive a Star Wars t-shirt thanks to Kroger Home Team Brands. That'll be the Reds and the Giants Saturday, May the 6th. You can be there for as low as $12. Visit Reds.com. So down 4-0 at the end of 1. The Reds got a run back, but now face a 5-run deficit after the second home run in as many innings from Eric Thames. 2, 3, and 4 in the batting order, so a good group to try and start chipping away. Peraza really worked over by Garza with a runner at third and nobody out in the first inning. Got Peraza to strike out on a bad, really 2 of the 3 pitches in the at bat were not in the strike zone. Pick right there on a hot smash by Peraza.
Those are 2 pretty good back-to-back plays at third base by each of the opposing third basemen in this ballgame. Suarez made a dandy of a defensive play to end the inning. And now Hernandez, I mean, he just robs a double away from Peralta right there. That ball was scalded. Peraza.
Joey Votto walked his first time up. Hey, a lot of folks here in Milwaukee that are very interested in the NBA playoffs tonight. The Milwaukee Bucks are playing up in Toronto. Series tied at 2-2 opening round in a best-of-7. Game 5 going on, so probably has something to do with a little thinner crowd, although not too bad here tonight. I mean, it's been amazing, even during these last 2-3 very lean years for the Brewers. They have drawn incredibly well, and certainly you have to say, Chris, we were talking about this the other day, when you know as a fan who might only be able to come to 1 or 2 games a year, that when you buy a ticket, you're going to play baseball here with this retractable dome. What a difference it makes.
Well, especially when you're drawing from hundreds of miles away.
Sure.
When people plan well ahead of time. If they're going to a game on a certain day, they want to make sure that that game's being played.
I mean, you don't have to bundle up, you know, and bring hats, ski caps, winter coats, and all that kind of thing, which if, you know, they were playing outdoors, their weather very similar to what you might get in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. Probably a little warmer here than there, but not much different.
They're middle of the road, really, when the overall attendance is added up. They were 9th of 15 last year. They had a little over 2.3 million.
But again, they're next to last as far as the market size is concerned, and they're still outdrawing, you know, a number of and a team that lost 90 games. But when they were rolling there a couple of years ago, they were drawing over 3 million.
They were.
Votto has walked for the 2nd time tonight. Of course, this is the home to Miller beer. And coming up later on, we'll have our Miller Time highlight brought to you by Miller Lite. Have you ever taken the tour of the Miller Brewing Company here in town?
I have not.
You have not. All right.
I have tasted the product, though.
There's a real surprise. Duvall struck out with runners at 1st and 3rd his first time up.
Beer is like a watch. I don't want to know how to make it. I just want to know what time it is. Make sure you put it in the refrigerator before you show it to me.
I got you. You know, we have Miller Lite as our sponsor here, as we just told you a moment ago, but I tell you, that company's still making the champagne of beers. And that would be the highlight.
Very distinctive bottle.
Oh boy. Solid. Two and one on Duvall. One on, one out. Reds down 6-1. We are in the 3rd.
Well, he's doing a good job of just laying off those teaser pitches that Garza's flipping up there on him.
Adam, a team leader in both home runs and runs batted in, has one more knocked in. I beg your pardon, Votto actually passed him yesterday. Chase that one. Was fooled, but able to drop it foul over the screen. Count is 3-2 now on Adam Duvall.
A couple of guys talking hitting down there at first base.
3-2 on Duvall. Straight up in the air, and this one is playable. Who wants it? Second baseman comes sprinting over. And VR there to get it.
Well, you can kind of tell that Thames really didn't want a whole lot to do with that one, and VR's ball all the way if he can get there. That's a much better angle on it. I'll tell you one thing about Garza tonight. He is coming inside and throwing the ball right in that little zone, right underneath the hands of the right-handed hitter that they just can't get much on it. He does it right there to Duvall and pops him up very easily. He pitched Suarez the same way his first time up.
Nothing in one on Suarez. He ended that first inning stranding a pair in scoring position on a hot smash down to the third baseman Perez. Milwaukee already with 3 home runs in this game, a 4 spot in the first inning, 2 more in the second. A long way to go in this one. We're just in the third. Votto did have a stolen base, his first of the year, in 2 attempts in that first inning. That's when the Brewers elected, with Hamilton at third, not to throw down to second base, or fear that Billy perhaps on the backside would take off for the plate. Fastball off the outside corner. 2-1 on Suarez. With a veteran like Garza on the mound, why would the catcher be continually looking into the Brewers dugout between every pitch? Any guess on that?
Well, they're always getting defensive instructions. A lot of people think that the pitches are being called from the bench. They're not. I don't think there's a major league team out there that does that. You would think, well, am I looking over there for a possible pitch out? Not likely, but the habit of looking over is such that you got to do it every time.
And there's something you rarely ever see happen right there. You got to go back to September the 6th of last season, 42 consecutive games since Orlando Arcia has committed an error.
Hit very sharply, that is, and just kind of drops it right through the wickets. Hey, you're down by 5 runs. You'll take any little bit of help you can get. Ball in the gap right here, drives a couple in.
That streak, by the way, second on the all-time franchise list for Brewers shortstops. Mark Loretta went 63 straight games. As Schebler hits it a mile high and down the right field line, a ton to foul. And Loretta was a rock solid player, but he was nowhere near the defender in terms of getting the balls that Arcia is. Two on, 2 out. Let's see if Schebler can make him pay. Fastball up and away. Scott struck out swinging. His only time up tonight. Votto drew a walk. Suarez reaches on the air. They're 2 away in the inning. And that pitch count really starting to pile up for Garza. Up over 70. We're just in the 3rd inning. It's not like the Reds are hitting him hard. And they had back-to-back balls that were hit very hard in that 2nd inning, producing the Reds' only run, the triple by Cozart, the double by Turner. But outside of that, not much.
At least not hard hit balls in the air, but in this inning, both the play by the Perez, the 3rd baseman, that was a shot, and the one that Arcia misplayed was hit very sharply.
Two balls, 2 strikes, 2 on, 2 out. That ball in the air hit hard. Deep left field, Braun at the wall, and it is gone. They make him pay indeed for the error. Schebler's 2nd home run in as many games. And a 3 spot, as you said, Chris Welsh, and all of a sudden, the Reds right back in this thing.
Well, you got to like it when Schebler starts hitting the ball the other way with that kind of authority. We saw Eric Thames do it for a home run, the 2nd of the game, and Schebler just trying to go down and away right there, and Schebler goes right down there to get it. Not all that bad of a pitch. That's the intriguing thing about Scott Schebler. The opposite field power that he has that you just don't, it doesn't come along that often.
Well, you said it. I mean, you just look at the guy. I mean, he is just as strong as a bull.
That takes a little wind out of the sails for Matt Garza. I mean, you're cruising right along. You give a 1 spot up. You're up by 5 runs. You're thinking, all right, I'm just going to cruise right along. All of a sudden, it's a 2-run game. And 10 runs have come in to score in this game. We're only at the top of the 3rd inning.
And he's not out of this 3rd inning yet, because the guy up now and the guy on deck went triple-double in the 2nd inning against Garza.
And it's not exactly something that Craig Counsell wants, is to get into that bullpen earlier than he has to.
They were really kicked around here over the weekend by the Cardinals, who had played horribly the early part of this season. But Adam Wainwright, Lance Lynn, and Mike Leake yesterday, a 3-game sweep. Or at least over the weekend. The Brewers won the first game of a 4-game series. It was a 3-game sweep Friday, Saturday, Sunday of that set. (3-2). And there's ball 4. So this inning continues for the Reds. And the crowd getting a little restless here with Matt Garza. And now the pitching coach Derek Johnson will come out and visit Garza. Take a look at that note at the bottom. That 9th walk drawn by Cozart last year. His 9th walk didn't come until what, the 55th game. And there is action in that Milwaukee bullpen. Drake up getting loose, a right-hander. Drake last pitched on Saturday, allowed a couple of runs in 1 inning of work against St. Louis. So now Turner, who had the double to knock in a run to right center, is first at bat. Ball 1. You never know what to expect, whether it's a veteran for a young pitcher in their first start back after a lengthy stay on the disabled list, and that was the case, as we brought up earlier, with Garza. It's down to third. They'll go the short way to end the inning. But the Reds take advantage of the error by Arcia, his first in 43 games. And Schebler plays long ball with 2 aboard. It's a 2-run game. Reds baseball on Fox Sports Ohio, brought to you by Cincinnati Children's, changing the outcome together. And by your local Ford dealer, Ford. Go further. Always send out a special hello to those watching over at Cincinnati Children's tonight. Hope you had a good day. A better one tomorrow. It's been a couple good days for that guy right there, Scott Schebler.
Sure has been.
Had a home run, 2 knocked in, 2 hits yesterday, and now a big 3-run home run to bring the Reds within 2. Let's see if Amir Garrett can have a quick, easy, scoreless inning. Gave up 4 in the first, 2 in the second. He's allowed 3 home runs so far. This kind of game where a young pitcher can learn a lot. You know, your offense might battle back and give you a chance to pick up a win, but your job is to keep them right there. There's nothing you can do about the first 2 innings now. And everything is a learning process for Amir Garrett. This is his 4th major league start.
One thing he has learned already, Tom, is that the pace of play is very important. And he's one of the quicker workers the Reds have had in a long time. And believe it or not, they track that nowadays. And if you're going to track in Major League Baseball, there are only 2 pitchers who work faster than Amir Garrett. Wade Miley, of course, the Reds just saw him the other night. They don't want to see him again. And then Bronson Arroyo. Those are the number of seconds between pitches. So 18.3 for Miley, 18.4 for Bronson Arroyo, and Amir Garrett just a half a second behind or so. That's called getting it and going.
Well, you know, you say that because they're the fastest right now. I'd be very interested to know what the fastest might have been about 15 or 20 years ago. And I only bring it up because there is a pitch clock now that's used in minor league baseball, and there's an at-bat that got away from Garrett. For a guy who's looking for outs, he got ahead of Santana, made him look bad, and ends up walking him. But anyway, you know, you've got a pitch clock now in the minor leagues, and I believe that's a 20-second pitch clock. So everybody's pitching that quickly in minor league baseball right now. And Jim Day, you've talked to him about that, right?
Yeah, I was very curious about it. I wondered, since he works so fast, is it just kind of groomed into him because of that pitch clock in the minor leagues? And he said, no, it didn't affect me at all. He has always pitched this fast at every level. So he's one of the few that it won't affect. But I agree with you. Going forward, that minor league pitch clock, we're going to see pitchers work quicker. At least we hope.
Well, we'll see. You know, they There was that game that some of you may have seen where it was written about where they found a Major League Baseball game from what 25 years ago and a Major League Baseball game from last year that had the exact same number of pitches in the game. Exact same number of pitches total that were thrown in the game. And the game 25 years ago was 24 minutes faster than the game that was played last year. And it had everything to do with pitchers and how quickly they're working and batters stepping out of the box or staying out of the box. Runner goes. Throw down by Turner. And it hits the runner sliding into second base. Reds actually caught a break there. Hopefully Santana's okay.
Yeah, that was a wild throw in as much as it was on the first base side of second base and had a chance to go all the way into center field right here. Although the way Billy Hamilton was closing quickly, I don't think Santana's going anywhere even if that ball does go into center field.
Straight up in the air and playable for Duvall. One out.
Oh, one more comment on the pace of pitching by Amir Garrett. You know, when asked about that, he says, well, I'm a guy that I like to think a lot. So if I take too much time out there, I'm going to start thinking, and that's when things go wrong for me. So he understands that it keeps his teammates on their toes. They get better plays behind them if he works quick. So he is all in on getting it and going. Time of games, something that you love very much right there, Tom Brenneman. His longest game now still under 2 hours and 30 minutes.
That is a fair ball down the left field line by Perez. Man, oh man, oh man. You look at the two guys in this lineup that are doing the damage tonight. And these are two guys that have been doing it to the Reds in 5 games already.
The 80% rule takes over, which is leadoff walks come around to score 80% of the time, and it happens on this double. Right inside the line, some sand kicks up, and Hernan Perez ends up getting a homer and a double.
Well over half of his hits and all but 2 of his RBIs have come against the Reds so far this year. Hopper to Cozart. 2 away in the inning. Brewers with a 7-4 lead now. Cozart to his right, and it throws him again.
Now both shortstops have made an error. This one just shorted a little bit over at first base. The Reds catch a break right here by Votto being able to keep it in front of him. And that ball got by him. Obviously another run scores. So no damage. It just brings Garza to the plate.
Garza struck out his first time up.
Your secret agent, man. People are loving that.
They are?
Yeah. The Twitter nation is.
Oh, boy.
First, they want you on Twitter, big time. And then they love that comment about the secret agent. I mean, we know you're on it, but you just don't have. You can't be traced.
You know better. There's a base hit into right field. And just one of those nights. For young Mr. Amir Garrett, they happen to everybody. Just not going your way. 8-4. Garza had one hit, we told you, all of last year. Here comes Mac Jenkins. You know, you compare the pitch count, Garrett compared to Garza, it's nowhere close. There's about a 20 pitch differential. Far more thrown by Garza, but the Brewers are just hitting the baseball. They have 6 hits, 4 extra base hits, 3 home runs, and it doesn't help that Garrett has walked 3 batters, and all 3 batters that he has walked have come in to score in this game.
You know, when I said the 80% rule of leadoff walks that come around to score, that's not actually accurate, but it is what pitching coaches tell you. It just seems like it happens when you're out there.
That'll end the inning. Brewers have scored in each of the front 3, 4-2-2, and they lead 8-4.
This series marks the first time that Scooter Gennett comes into Miller Park as an opponent. I'm Jim Day, and talked to him before the game, and he said naturally it was a little weird coming into this ballpark as a Cincinnati Red.
I'm not gonna lie, it was a little weird walking past that home entrance, and the walk's a little longer to get to the visiting clubhouse, but no, it was, like I said, it was nice to see some of those familiar faces and you know, give some hugs and stuff like that. It was pretty cool.
And he was a popular guy before the game, signing autographs by the Reds dugout, and all of the people that are asking him for an autograph all had Brewers shirts on, so he was well liked here.
Well, we'll see if Gennett gets a start in this series. He certainly would think he would.
He said he'd been in the clubhouse a long time ago, and I caught him today. He was, you know, there's a part of the clubhouse at Players Lounge where they have some really old arcade games. Kind of like centipede and stuff like that. And he was in there having one heck of a time. It'll be fun to hear the response when he gets into one of these ball games. They will allow Amir Garrett to bat. To lead off the bottom of the top of the fourth.
Well, the Reds have such a thin bench, if you will, because of all the pitchers they're carrying right now. And so here we are just in the top of the fourth inning. 8 runs, 6 hits, 3 errors for the Brewers and 2 left on base. 4 runs, 4 hits for the Reds, 1 error. And the Reds have left 4. We invite you to join the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Cincinnati, their annual Blue Door Bash Gala. That's Saturday, May the 13th at the Hyatt Regency downtown. The signature event celebrates the achievements and successes of the 5,000 plus club members served every day. In fact, big event this weekend, the SPCA Cincinnati Furball. Their incredible work they do all over Greater Cincinnati, and they have their big gala out at the Sharonville Convention Center on Saturday night this week, and I'm pretty sure they have tickets available if you'd still like to jump on board. Two 2-0 on Billy Hamilton. Reds batting in the 4th inning, down by 4. Got to wonder how much longer Garza is going to be in this game. He did just bat, did just knock in a run, but already closing in on 90 pitches in this game with 1 out in the 4th inning. Well, Hamilton twice has hit the ball in the air. And both times at Ryan Braun. 1 for 3 for Billy. 2 outs in the inning. You know, you were talking about Ryan Braun and all the rumors flying around about maybe a trade down the road to the Dodgers. He grew up out in Los Angeles. Attended college at the University of Miami at Florida. But he's a California kid. Of course, the Dodgers have paid hundreds of millions of dollars trying to find outfielders that could do what they wanted to do. I mean, you know, Andre Ethiers had a nice career, but it's coming down now to an end. They were paying Carl Crawford all those years to play in the outfield. They thought they had a young player in Jock Peterson. You know, initially was an all-star and really struggled a lot since then. I'm sure Ryan Braun would dramatically improve that Dodger offense. LA is 1 game under 500 with by far the highest team payroll in Major League Baseball. Upwards of $200 million plus per year they're spending on that team. And you know, when they take the field to play against you, and I'm not dare suggesting that, you know, they don't have a good team. I'm not saying that. But that is not a lineup that when you write the names down on a piece of paper that you expect from a team with that kind of payroll.
You're right.
You put Braun in that lineup, it's enhanced tremendously. Reds are gone in order. First perfect inning for either pitcher tonight.
Speed pitches have been working so well coming into this ball game, but tonight when you hang them in the upper part of the strike zone, home run, opposite field home run. Eric Thames, 2 of them, had a double down the line, and that really has spelled disaster for Garrett. Just being able to not be able to keep that breaking ball down around the knees the way he has been so consistently able to do it so far. 3 walks, they've all come around to score. And 7 earned runs in 3 innings, but he's still on the mound battling, and Reds are only down by 4.
Well, the aforementioned Thames, 2 home runs already in the game tonight. Ties the Brewers record set by Carlos Lee in 2006. Man, that guy could hit. What a run producer he was. Long time with the White Sox, team of the Brewers. And we mentioned 7 of the 10 have come against the Reds.
Just trying to pick away at that outside corner, unable to throw it over the plate.
Of course, we were talking about the Dodgers. And, you know, for the rumors about Ryan Braun and so forth, their team payroll this year is $241 million,
which is the lowest it's been in 3 years.
Yeah, but still 241. Their starting outfield tonight is Andrew Toles, journeyman, Yasiel Puig, who they're still hoping will blossom into a big star, might or might not happen, and Enrique Hernandez. That's the starting outfield for a team with a $240+ million payroll. They're not paying Corey Seager anything, and he's the best player on the team. Only in his 2nd year.
Well, they've got a pitcher at the top of their payroll list.
Yes, they do.
But you may say that of all the people in the league that would be deserving of being the highest paid player, he might be the guy.
No doubt about that. If you had to pick one player, he would be the guy at his position.
Well, they now have some activity in the Reds bullpen. Be Ariel Hernandez. Recently called up to the big leagues. Yep.
Pull it into left center field. It'll go all the way to the wall. And this will bring in Thames all the way from first. They're going to wave him around. Here comes a throw to the plate. Not in time. Leadoff walk. They scored again. All 4 batters walked in this game by Amir Garrett have come in to score.
Well, that ball comes off the bat of Ryan Braun so hard it's knuckling. Well, you can see it kind of weaving back and forth as it makes its way all the way to the left center field wall.
Still nobody out. Garrett has allowed 9 runs in this game. What a play by Votto. That took a bad hop on him. Garrett wins a race to the bag. On to third goes Braun.
Really nice play.
And that ball was smoked. So a good play there by Joey. One away in the inning, and here's Pena. 1 of 2 is singled, scored, and popped up to left. The Reds will bring the infield in. Still a long way to go in this one. We're only in the 4th inning, and it's a 5-run game. Well, you don't know if it has anything to do with anything, and it's not placing any blame in any way, shape, or form on anybody except for the guy on the mound. But tonight is the first time in his 4 starts, as we brought up earlier, that it's not been Tucker Barnhart working behind the plate with left-hander Amir Garrett. And again, please do not misunderstand. I am not insinuating for a second. That is just a fact. It's the first time tonight it's not been the battery of Garrett and Barnhart.
Well, it's also the first time we've seen Amir Garrett pitch where he's just throwing the ball around waist high, especially his breaking pitches. The one thing that has stood out more than anything for Amir Garrett is his command of his stuff, especially down in the zone. Tonight, it hasn't happened, and this Brewer team can hit.
That was more the kind of pitching we saw from Garrett. First 3 outings. That pitch you just saw a moment ago. Virtually an unhittable pitch. But it didn't matter who you are. These games are going to happen.
Yeah, I still like the fact, I mean, I know he's walked 4. Unfortunately, they've all come around to score, but I still like the fact that he's battling out there and he's continuing the pace of pitching quick one after another. If you begin to labor, you get to a point where you're beginning to labor. I'm sure that the Reds would love to get him through this inning. They brought the infield in to cut the runoff.
By a diving Cozart in the left center field. You got to believe that's going to be all for Garrett. They can't let this go on any worse than it's happened already tonight.
They're hoping, I think, to get him through this inning to end on somewhat of a good note. That's not going to happen.
No.
Because here comes Brian Price right now, and he's already made the motion.
So 3 brilliant outings by Amir Garrett, and tonight just not his night. This is a really good hitting Milwaukee Brewers team. We told you they lead the major leagues in so many categories. So Amir Garrett, I'm sure, will wrestle through the night with this outing, but he'll turn the page tomorrow. And this will be our Skyline call to the bullpen. Back in a moment. For Amir Garrett here tonight. Gives up 10 runs so far, 9 of which are earned runs.
Well, one exits a young pitcher with certainly a bright future, and another making his major league debut. Hernandez. Reds got him in the Rule 5 draft a couple of years ago, the minor league version of it. He was down in Pensacola when they called him up. And here he is on the mound for his first major league pitch.
And on his first major league pitch, he might get a double play. And no. Perez getting down that line. I mean, if you can believe this, here we are on April the 24th, and to give you an idea, the Reds, which, you know, according to the Alliance Sports Bureau, when opening day rosters were submitted by all 30 teams, the average age for the Reds' 25-man roster was the youngest in Major League Baseball. Hernandez tonight becomes the 8th Reds player already this year to make their Major League debut. Barrett Aston, Rookie Davis, Stuart Turner, Amir Garrett, Jesse Winker, Sal Romano, Phillip Ervin, and now Ariel Hernandez. That's incredible.
It is incredible.
Runner takes off, got a big jump. Boy, that's some serious giddy up on that fastball. 98 miles per hour.
Really a wonderful young man who was originally signed by the Giants when he was 16 years old out of Santo Domingo, the Dominican Republic. He pitched 5 years in rookie ball with the Giants before they finally released him. He sat out a year because he had a bad shoulder. Then he came back and played a little independent ball. And the Reds scouted him when he was playing for the Hillsboro Hops up in the Northwest League as a member of the Diamondbacks organization, and they drafted him in the minor league version of the Rule 5 there. You know, he's from the Dominican Republic, and he met his wife in Arizona. They have a little 2-year-old boy, and she is from Minnesota. So he spent his first winter ever in Minnesota last winter. Muy frio.
Mucho frio. Mucho frio.
Features, interviews, so much more. It's brought to you by Ray St. Clair Roofing. Time now for our showstopper video of the night. We're going to feature on Madeira's Andrew Benintendi. 5 hits yesterday. First player with a 5-hit game in the bigs this season. And the 3rd youngest Red Sox player to do it. The 4th youngest player on that list for the Red Sox, some guy named Babe Ruth. Andrew Benintendi, Cincinnati's own, a promising young career.
He's a Mustang. the Madeira High School Mustangs. Right?
You're exactly right.
Hey, did you know, though, that who was the last player to go 5 for 5 that early in his career? I think Benintendi has only played about 50 or 60 games total, so he's still a rookie. Well, the last player to have gone 5 for 5 in his rookie season that early was a member of the Reds, Steve Selski. Just did it a couple of years ago. And as it turns out, he was batting right in front of Andrew Benintendi in that ball game because he's been picked up by the Boston Red Sox.
Yep. That was last year.
There's Jan Carlos Marinez, who has come in to pitch for the Brewers.
Garza, his first start, goes 4 innings, allows 4 hits, 4 runs, 3 earned. Or no, I beg your pardon, 2 earned, because of that error by Suarez. Would have been the final out of the 3rd inning. And the following batter, Schebler, hit a 2-run home run. He would never have batted in that inning were it not for the first error in 43 games by Orlando Arcia. Votto gone on strikes. First time they've retired him tonight. Duvall struck out in the opening inning. He fouled out to the first baseman Villar in the 3rd. We're in the top of the 5th. Brewers have scored in every inning. 4 in the first, 2 in each of the next 3. And all the runs against Red starter Amir Garrett. Mourinho's retired the only 2 batters he faced yesterday. He has a pair of losses already this season and made his first career appearance on an opening day roster here in 2017. 3-1 on Duvall. This will back up Santana, but if the track has 1, 2 out. Obviously, by going only 4 innings, Garza cannot pick up a win here tonight.
I'm sure that's disappointing to him, given the fact that his team gave him 10 runs with which to work.
Now Suarez with 2 down and nobody on in the Reds' 5th inning. See, that Cardinal team must have done a really good job. When you see this Milwaukee offense, now maybe the Reds have seen their best, and let's be honest about it, that's probably true. They have 10 tonight in the first 4 innings. They just knocked the cover off the ball in beating the Reds 3 out of 4 in Cincinnati. And we told you earlier that of the 10 home runs that Thames has this year, 7 of the 10 have come against the Reds. So the Reds have clearly seen their best so far. Well, the Cardinals lost the first game here Thursday night. And when I made the comment earlier about a sweep, they swept the games over the weekend. But the Brewers scored 3, they scored 1, and they scored 4. So 8 runs in the final 3 innings, final 3 games of that series. The only Cardinal pitcher who got knocked around was Carlos Martinez, and so far this year he's been one of the great mysteries in all of baseball. 0-3 record, very high ERA. And most people thought this would be the year he became their ace.
Wainwright, Lance Lynn, and then Mike Leake back to back threw the ball very well against this Brewer team. Mike Leake's earned run average now 1.3.
Stood him up there with a fastball. Three-two pitch on the way from Martinez. They had him played perfectly. That's the second baseman.
Second time he's been robbed.
Middle of the 5th. All Brewers so far. With a new Star Wars themed ticket package for as low as $30, you get a Reds ticket and a limited edition Star Wars Stormtrooper. Limited quantities, quantities are available. Quality is top flight. Reds.com/Star Wars to learn more. RC to start things against Hernandez. You know, that was a funny story. You know, we went to break and we were talking about Hernandez marrying a woman from Minnesota. For some of you that have been to anywhere in the state of Minnesota, all of my experience would be in the dead of winter in downtown Minneapolis. There's a bouncer down to third. It is just an entirely different cold, and I'm sure there are other places that go to another level compared to Minneapolis. But when you walk down the streets in Minneapolis in the dead of winter, it does more than take your breath away cold. It is indescribable how cold it can be in the wintertime, and especially if you have to be out at all at nighttime in the wintertime. And so that had to be just overwhelming at times for this young man who grew up in a climate where you couldn't be much at the other end of the spectrum.
And of course it's dark in the wintertime a lot there. Although, Tom, I think in downtown, isn't that a city that is just really completely made up with
like we have
tunnels and walkways,
yes.
And so the locals don't have to walk outside. Well, didn't anybody tell you that when you got there?
No, but there are certain things that you still have to do during the course of a day if you're in that city and you're going to other places. You know, whether it's, you know, you walk to your car, if you go to the mall, for example, or something like that, you're going to walk from your car to get into the mall and in all kinds of different places, whatever it might be. You know, having said that, the people that are the natives there, I've never been to a town that's colder in my life where more people get out and do more things from an exercise standpoint in the dead of winter. There are people running around all over the place. It's that Scandinavian blood, brother.
It's the only way to stay warm.
Well, I know one thing. It might be mucho frio in the winter, but that fastball is mucho caliente.
He's throwing, and I'm not talking about just touching it, but he is pitching around 97 to 98 miles an hour. I mean, everybody nowadays is throwing 93 to 94. But this is legit.
He is throwing very hard. And how about that? First pitch to BR. So he's retired. Here in this his major league debut. All four batters that he has faced and tries to make it a perfect inning. And he comes right back with that fastball. That radar gun's in a rut at 98. You see he's already hit triple digits. One tick below it on that fastball.
And he's throwing strikes. He's faced four batters. He has struck out two. And not afraid to just throw the ball over the plate.
Two and two on VR, one of the few Brewers to not get in on much of the action tonight. He's 0 for 2. He has scored a run after he drew a walk. That's a pretty nasty little breaking ball right there after you're throwing 98, 99, 100 miles an hour.
I had a nice conversation with him before the game. He speaks very good English. And it's between a curveball and a slider. He calls it a slurve.
Well, that's a gas right there.
100.
Mucho caliente. The Heat. The man from Minnesota. Is Memorial Day weekend, and that means a Memorial Tournament presented by Nationwide is coming to beautiful Muirfield Village Golf Club May 29th through June the 4th outside of Columbus. Order your badges at memorialbadges.com. I think they play a U.S. Open here this year, if I'm not mistaken.
They do. They play it at a golf course named Erin Hills, which I heard last night when we went out to dinner. Some people who were kind of closely involved with that event.
That ball stung the other way by Schebler, and that bat might be coming alive. That's caught out there by Braun. That almost took his glove off.
That's impressive. Anyway, that Erin Hills, Tom, 7,000 yards or so is about what they normally will play a PGA event at, the length of the entire course. They can lengthen this course to over 8,000 yards.
That's a lot.
Be interesting. Even those guys that are knocking it a mile will have a hard time with some of those holes.
Yeah, but you could bring that thing to its knees. You and my dad and Cowboy and Jim Digg.
For
a quartet.
In an entirely different way.
Well, perhaps, but
they're not letting us on there before the tournament, I can tell you that. You ever see Cowboy drive a golf cart?
No, I haven't. No. Zach Cozart is 1 of 1. He's drawn a walk. He has a triple and a run scored. Mourinho's on a relief of Matt Garza. We are in the top of the 6th inning. And that 1-2-3 frame by Hernandez is the first scoreless inning for the Brewers tonight. He is really throwing the ball well tonight. And I know, a lot of people that were thrown all the way to the backstop in the air by Mourinho's. Did that hit him?
Well, the first thing he did was check his hand after the ball went over Cozart's head and all the way to the backstop.
No, nowhere near him. That was ball 4 in the at-bat. That's scary right there. Stuart Turner 1 for 2, knocked in a run with a double. Well, the Cubbies are blasting the Pirates. They scored 4 in the first inning. They had 10 runs by the third. It is 12-3 Cubs in the 7th inning. Top of the 7th inning at that. Oliver Drake is up again for a second time, throwing in the Brewers bullpen. Saw him up way back in the 3rd inning. That ball stung by Turner, and this will go all the way to the wall. He's going to have his second double and second run batted in of the night. Cozart all the way from first base. Stuart Turner has hit the ball very hard.
A couple of doubles really for Turner tonight. Tell you, you better keep the ball down against him. Look where this pitch is again. He had a pitch up earlier that he drove into right center field. This time he gets it down around waist high and he drives it very hard into left center field. Does that swing remind you a little bit of Scott Rowland?
It does.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Very short. Quick.
Big guy. He's built like Rowland, too.
That's all for Marinez. He gives up so far 1 run in an inning and a third. This game is not over. We are only in the 6th inning. There's a long way to go. Drake will come on.
This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the Cincinnati Reds and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Cincinnati Reds.
Not a bad ball player there. Hammer and Hank.
Did we just see Hammer and Hank throw out the first pitch at the new stadium down in Atlanta?
Yes. Oliver Drake takes over on the mound. Hernandez will bat. Reds need some innings gobbled up by this young man here tonight. He's worked an inning and 2/3, a perfect baseball behind Amir Garrett so far. Pretty good eye right there. Say, you find a way to get a couple of more runs in the next inning or two, you still have a shot in this one. One hopper to the first baseman. That'll be the second out of the inning.
I think Craig Counsell would agree with you 100%. He's probably not feeling like this game is certainly put away. It's certainly nice to be up by 5 rather than down by 5, but not a baseball to be left.
Well, let's see if Billy Hamilton can get that run in from third and get a little bit closer, and then give some of the guys behind him still a crack in this 6th inning. Billy had a single to lead off the game on the first pitch of the game. He stole second base. He went to third on an errant throw, and the Reds could not get him in. With a runner at third and nobody out in that first inning, they wound up stranding runners at second and third in the first inning. We'll have to get a shot of this family that's making their way up to go get something to eat, or maybe a stop in the Nature Calling Center. But there was a tiny little baby, toddler, whose older brother was sitting right behind her.
He was about 3.
And he kept kicking her in the face. I mean, you know, little taps with the shoe. But I think Mom and Dad had seen enough of that. We'll have to come back to them a little bit later. They haven't left. They will be back. 2-2 on Hamilton. 3-2. Billy trying to keep this inning alive. It's a nice play by Perez over in front of the Reds dugout. Billy's popped up 3 times in a row. Eric Thames has been the man tonight. We told you 7 home runs against Reds pitching of the 10 he's hit this season. Now, obviously, he's doing a good job against other teams. But 7 and 11 in a .500 batting average against the Reds. 3 and 6 against everybody else. Uh-oh. This will stay in the yard, I think. Yep, Hamilton will run it down.
Well, if it stays in the yard and it stays in the air any amount of time at all, Billy Hamilton That's a pretty good chance of running it down. He's an outfielder that is really made for a big outfield like this. We've talked about that for years, all of the really good defensive outfielders that they have had here. More recently, we've seen Carlos Gomez, Keon Broxton, their current center fielder, very quick too.
Aguilar is batting for Ryan Braun. Give Ryan Braun a little time off the rest of this one. I mean, Braun, one of those guys, you know, a lot like Votto. When they're healthy, you can't get these guys out of the lineup. And this kid is really throwing the ball exceptionally well here tonight. I don't care what the score is.
I mean, he's coming right out of Double-A, remember. A nasty breaking ball. I mean, look at Aguilar just chasing a pitch that bounces 2 feet in front of home plate.
Now Santani's walked twice, scored twice, hit the ball very hard his last time up. That was a nice play made by Votto. Swing and a miss on another fastball in the upper 90s. That one at 98 miles per hour.
Oh, boy, oh boy. Good night.
Then you come back with that breaking ball, and that's see you later. What an impressive major league debut for Mr. Hernandez. On the game summary right from the get-go. The Brewers jumped on Amir Garrett. He had a home run. Did Thames in the first inning. Hernandez hit a 3-run home run and a 4-run first. Thames another home run in the second inning. Perez and Thames have just killed the Reds so far this year. Perez has knocked in 4 runs tonight. He had 4 RBIs all year long. Now Schembler showing signs of coming alive the last couple of days. Knocked in 2 yesterday, at an opposite field 3-run home run in the game tonight. And it's 10-5 as the Reds will bat here in the 7th inning. Hernandez has been so impressive here tonight. Brewers make another change on the mound. They're going to bring on Carlos Torres. He follows Garza, Martinez, and Drake. Drake got the final 2 outs after the Reds had scored in the 6th inning. Thames has gone from first base to left field. And Aguilar takes over at first base after batting for Ryan Braun a moment ago. Ball in the air to left center field by Peraza. Keon Broxton can go get him out there. He's an excellent defender. 1 out. Joey Votto, a pair of walks, has stolen a base, scored a run, and then struck out swinging against Martinez in the 5th. 10 runs, 8 hits. 3 errors, 3 left for Milwaukee. Five runs, 5 hits, an error, and 5 left on base for the Reds. We are in the 7th inning. I would imagine that's going to be it for Hernandez. He has been working out of the bullpen down in the minor leagues. His last outing was just 1 inning. Got to win in that game. There's a drive in a deep right center field. And it's up against the wall. Votto has his first hit tonight. And he's in with a 1-out double.
3rd time Joey's been on base. Couple of walks. Right down there in the center cut of the plate, a couple of inches above the knees. Votto's seen it a lot better here in the last few days.
Well, we don't know if that's going to be it for sure or not. Drew Storn continues to throw in the bullpen, but I'll tell you what, I don't know if you can do much better in a major league debut than Hernandez did here tonight. A perfect 2 2/3 innings.
I mean, the results are one thing. Those were as good as you could get, but I mean, how he did it was very, very impressive.
Did not walk a batter, didn't allow a hit. He struck out 5, and the stuff very sharp. 30 pitches to get almost through 3 innings. Looks like he has an appetite after spending the winter in Minnesota of chewing up cups. Those winters will make you do that.
Yeah. I've never tried one of those.
Well, they have a whole bunch of them just behind us. If you want to walk back there in between innings, we'll get you on camera gnawing on one of those things. Man.
I guess those big league cups taste a lot better than those ones you get down in AA.
Yeah, these are the styrofoam. A few more calories there, but not nearly the fat.
Well, good thing he's got one of the trainers next to him, Tomas Veras, just in case.
I mean, look at that face on Tomas. He's watching him do this.
He's going to have to
well, let's see if he looks
Heimlich.
back over it. He looks like right now he's kind of saying, "You got to be kidding! I'm watching a guy eat a cup." Tomas is looking around. Is anybody seeing what I'm seeing? Look. How's that taste? Huh? It's an acquired taste. I'll tell you one thing, the way he threw tonight, you might have a whole dugout full of guys eating those cups tomorrow. Down to the bullpen. Straight up in the air. This one will be playable. VR going out to get it. 2 away. And our Miller time moments provided in the major league debut of Ariel Hernandez. We understand he is the 3rd Reds reliever in his major league debut to strike out as many as 5 batters. Tony Cingrani did it in 2012. 1977 Angel Torres did the same thing. This should end the inning on the fly ball by Suarez. And it does. So Torres allows a hit and 1 left. They stand and stretch in Milwaukee, 10-5 Brewers. off with a bang. Every Friday we have fireworks at the old ballpark. And Friday, May the 5th, the Giants are in town. You can be there for $12. And the fireworks show is presented by Yucatan Guacamole. For tickets, visit Reds.com. That's a note the start time, by the way, on that game on Friday night. They're starting that game the same time that the Brewers started this one tonight, 6:40 local time. And Drew Storm will take over on the mound. And Chris, you know, I've talked about this for years now. I think more and more Major League Baseball teams should consider this start time during the months of April and May, and then in September when school is in. The Arizona Diamondbacks have done it from the first day of the franchise. And even in a game like tonight where you're already closing in on, what, 2 hours and 45 minutes, and you're only in the 7th inning, it is still only 9:15 locally.
Gives kids a chance to get back home and get to bed before school.
And it gives mom and dad a chance who have to get up early. Get up with the kids in the morning and get them up for school. Parents get up and go to work. Doesn't sound like much, but there's a big difference if you watch enough games between a 7:10 start and a 6:40 start. Drew Storm has thrown the ball really well for the Reds so far, and this is his first season with the team.
He sure gives the Brewers a different look than what you saw out of Ariel Hernandez. Hernandez routinely throwing the ball 98 to 100 miles an hour. And I think that Hernandez last year at this time was in Dayton playing an A ball. Now Drew Storm, he has added a couple of things to his repertoire. A little hang right there with his leg up in the air, a little kind of a hesitation move. He doesn't twist and turn like Johnny Cueto did. That move is primarily for two reasons. One is to get his windup together into the balance point, and the other is to try to upset the timing of the hitter. And he feels like he's on to something.
1-2 on Pena. And there's strike 3 call.
Kind of a breaking ball that starts right inside and takes it back over the plate and freezes the Brewers catcher.
Brewers are 6 outs away from going 4-1 against the Reds this season, but the Reds still have a crack at them. I mean, they don't have that dominant shutdown guy at the end of their bullpen. They had one get away from him the other night when Phillies got lit up in the 9th. So you never know. Ground ball to Kozar. 2 away. Cubs now in the bottom of the 8th inning are beating the Pirates 14-3. Cubbies bats for the first time all year long came alive in big moments in that series over the weekend in Cincinnati, and some of their guys found the home run stroke. Jason Hayward and Anthony Rizzo homered in each game of the series.
Hayward hit one in the first inning, a 3-run bomb for the Cubs tonight. He was the one that got it going.
Keon Broxton the batter, and there's a strike. 0-2. Ariel Hernandez, or Ariel as he probably says it in his native tongue. What an outing tonight. 2 2/3 in his major league debut. Did not walk a batter, did not allow a hit. And struck out 5 Milwaukee Brewers. Broken bat pop up short right. Schebler got a nice jump on that ball and ran it down to end the inning.
And tomorrow the Reds continue their series against the Brewers. Reds Live gets everything started at 7 p.m. right here on Fox Sports Ohio and streaming live on Fox Sports Go. For the Reds, they will turn to veteran right-hander Scott Feldman as he goes to the hill, trying to improve on what has been an improvement since the opening day when he was the opening day starter. Feldman against this vaunted Brewers lineup. And it'll look like this. Zach Davies will go to the hill for the Brewers. They've seen him already this year, and Feldman sporting a very nice 2.38 ERA so far, and he told me that his next goal, get deeper into games.
Knebel will take over on the mound for the Brewers. He is the fifth pitcher they've used tonight behind their starter Garza, and everybody's thrown the ball pretty well. Mourinho's did give up one run, but good work by Drake and Torres.
Knebel's been up for a few years, and he's still a very young man, only 24 years of old. He was in 35 games last year for the Brewers, had more strikeouts than he did innings pitched. Had a little delay in the action because he had a side injury that delayed him really until about June before he got going. He rushes it up there pretty good.
Scott Schebler's hit the ball very hard twice in 3 trips tonight, including a 3-run home run, opposite field home run for Schebler's, now homered in each of the last 2 games. Well, that's some serious gas right there. You're right.
And a pretty good spot.
Michael Lorenzen is going to bat. Oh, I beg your pardon. Michael Lorenzen is warming up in the bullpen. Please forgive me. Zach Cozart will bat, who's had a perfect night. A triple, 2 walks, 2 runs scored. And that perfect night continues. Another extra base hit for Cozart. What a year he's having. 3 weeks into this season, and Cozart swinging the bat better than at any time in his major league career.
You got to figure at some point he'll be moving up this batting order a little bit. Right now in the number 7 spot, he has hit the ball down both lines tonight. Hit the ball down the right field line for a triple in the 2nd inning, and he gets 2 out of that one. Turner's had a nice night. Every time they pitched him up in the zone, it seems like he has laid out a rope.
Scooter Gennett just turned loose by the Brewers prior to the start of the regular season, scooped up by the Reds, is standing in the on-deck circle. First time he's ever stood over on that side of this diamond, coming up to hit. Turner, the double to knock in a run to right center in the second. Hit the ball hard, but bounced out into a fielder's choice, ending the third. And then his second double was into left center, which also plated a run. 3-1. And he draws a walk. Well, now all of a sudden you got a chance to get back in this thing. You're in the 8th inning. 2 on, 1 out. Let's see if Billy Hamilton keep the ball from where he will wait as Scooter Gennett bats first, and then it's Hamilton. And you heard the reaction, a very nice round of applause for Scooter Gennett. See his career with the Milwaukee Brewers. He had some good moments here with his team, and a lot of them came against the Reds. How sweet would this be for Scooter Gennett if he could run into one over that right field wall right about now and get his team right back in this thing. They have 2 on, down by 5 with 1 out here in the 8th. Breaking ball, and there's a strike. Rolled over, that one foul.
Well, they're not surprised here by the fact that Gennett has already 3 home runs. He had 14 for the Brewers last year. That was by far his high water mark. Out of the 4 years that he played for the Brewers, 3 of those years just about a full-time player.
Knebel ahead in the count at 1 ball, 2 strikes. 2 out. The only time Billy Hamilton has hit the ball on the ground tonight, he had a single into right field. Stole a base, went to third on an errant throw, was stranded there in 3 subsequent at bats. Pop up, foul out. Again, the top of the order, when they have things going on, the Reds have things going on. But here we are closing in on the first full month of this season, and neither Hamilton nor Peraza is doing what you want them to do, and that's get on base at the top of a batting order. Both with on base percentages not even at 300.
Well, the conversations have probably already happened. Is that what are the alternatives at this point? You start moving up guys like Cozart. He's batted at the top of the order before. Suarez swinging the bat. You want to put him in the top 4 somewhere. Just kind of juggle things up a little bit. One downside of the game of Billy Hamilton and Jose Peraza, for that matter, is the fact that they take very few walks. So their batting average directly dictates how often they're going to get on base.
Hamilton's walked 5 times. Peraza has walked twice. And you're talking about guys who are, closing in on 80 at bats so far this year. Two on, 2 out, 3 balls, 2 strikes on Billy Hamilton. Knebel okays a sign with his catcher Pena to the belt, and now the payoff pitch, and the runners are off. Here it is. In the air again to left field. And Thames unable to get there in time.
Now, Thames has got to be a manager's dream. I mean, he carries a big bat. He's driving runs in at an unprecedented rate, hitting home runs all over the place. He's your starting first baseman, but if you need to bring somebody else in, like Aguilar to play, you can put Aguilar at first, and Thames can go to left.
They're loaded up. The 6th walk drawn by Hamilton this year. Second walk in this inning given up by Knebel, and
that is a determined walk.
And it gives us a chance to tell you about Reds Live, the post-game show coming up tonight and after every game. Brought to you by Performance Kings Honda. They'll be standing by along with Jeff Pecoro and Brian Giesenschlag.
The Brewers have a little different look to their coaching staff. Their bench coach, we've talked about him a lot. Former college coach and a good one, Pat Murphy. Well, Derek Johnson was a longtime college pitching coach at Vanderbilt. A couple of other schools as well before he became the Cubs minor league pitching coordinator in 2013. Did that for 3 years, and that's when the Brewers hired him away.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, that an organization like the Cubs would name a college pitching coach to head up their entire coordination of pitchers in their minor league system. That is a very, very interesting thing.
It is interesting.
It's a big chance for the Reds here with the bases loaded and 2 outs in the 8th inning. And Peraza will knock in 1 run. They're going to hold the runner at 3rd and give Joey Votto a chance, carrying the tying run, to come to the plate. Don't get out of here quite yet.
A little pacing going on in that Brewer dugout.
Joey Votto, the tying run at the plate, has 6 home runs this season. He doubled to right center his last time up. Breaking ball, first pitch, a good one.
Well, that's a nasty pitch right there.
Pair of grand slams in Votto's career. Oh boy, how big this would be right now to get number 3. I mean, you'll take a single to center field to keep this inning alive. 1 ball and 1 strike on Votto, who's done more damage in his career against the Brewers than any other team he has played against since coming to the major leagues. Trying to inflict more pain right now. 1-1. Fastball up and away. Votto here at Miller Park in 64 games has 16 home runs and 48 batted in. The 16 homers, the highest total in any road ballpark for Votto. Came with a high heat. 2-2.
Well, he missed a couple breaking balls and just decided to come right after him, and he's got no choice, nowhere to put Votto with bases loaded.
Votto taking a few extra moments to get back in the box. Lays the bat once, twice, and now the 2-2 on the way. Oh, he had a good rip and fouled it back to the screen. We don't know what the 9th inning brings, but here in the 8th inning, the Reds have a shot. Loaded with 2 outs. 2 balls, 2 strikes to Votto. And a ground ball they had him played perfectly back up the middle, and that'll end the inning. Reds leave them loaded. They're down by 4 after 7½.
Sixth arrive early and be one of the first 20,000 fans to receive a Star Wars t-shirt thanks to Kroger Home Team Brands. See your Reds take on the Giants Saturday, May 6th for as low as $12. For tickets, visit Reds.com.
All right, Jim Day, I know you'll be getting ready here for Reds Live in a few minutes. As Michael Lorenzen takes over on the mound. Lorenzen coming off a rough outing when he blew that save on Friday night, allowing the 3-run home run to Anthony Rizzo with 2 outs in the ninth. Gave up 3 runs. And the only other bad outing that Lorenzen has had this year came against this Brewer team. He threw 1 inning back on the 14th. Gave up 4 hits and 4 earned runs. Oh my gosh, that line drive hit Lorenzen. Question is, where did it get it? Did the glove deflect the ball?
Ball sounded like a cherry bomb coming off the bat. That's how hard he hit it. I think I got him on the back of his right arm, the lat area.
Of course, a lat on most guys. They're looking. They're looking
at his arm, actually. I mean, usually they let the pitcher throw a few to see how he feels and then kind of determine whether he can stay in there. But if that got him on the arm, they're going to add. That's exactly what they're going to do. So why don't you take a few throws and see how it feels?
I mean, Lorenzen's not rubbing anything. He's not even looking at it funny. No, nothing. And he just threw a P right down the middle. This guy's. The two guys that stand out from a straight, just physique standpoint on this Reds team are Votto and Lorenzen. They are very low body fat, a ton of muscle, and just in incredible shape. Not to say there aren't others, but those two guys, listen to this line drive.
I mean, if you throw it at 100, it's coming back at you at 105.
Thank God he's all right. That could have been very scary. Nick Franklin will bat for Knebel, who goes 1 inning. Allows a couple of hits. Walks 2 batters. Strikes out 2 batters. Well, it's not a batted ball. It's a broken bat that comes flying at Lorenzen.
I mean, right out on the end of the bat, and the bat head comes flying out towards the pitcher. I don't know, Lorenzen didn't even realize it. He was more concerned about that ball going down the third baseline, fair or foul.
Franklin was a guy who had a 2-run triple against Lorenzen in that 4-run outing.
Yeah, I don't know why they allow hitters to do that and request time in the middle of the delivery and then call timeout. Brian Price has got to be aggravated at that too.
What's the second time we've seen it in 2 days?
I mean, I know, but Franklin apologized, but he's not the guy at fault. It's the home plate umpire.
Be a wild pitch advancing the runner. Jacob Barnes is throwing in the Brewers bullpen. We'll see him in the ninth. Lorenzen is still not retired a batter, and it seems like the Brewers have been batting forever. This is only the second hitter in the inning. After the line drive hit Lorenzen. Had a broken bat. Timeout twice. Two and two on Nick Franklin.
That hit the plate.
And he swung and missed. And he'll reach on a wild pitch. The batter 0 for 3. He has walked and scored a run. Finals in over the American League. Baltimore continues to roll. Orioles are playing great baseball. 6-3 winners over Tampa Bay. Top of the ninth, Minnesota 3, Texas 2. White Sox beating up on Kansas City. The Royals are in danger tonight of setting a franchise record of playing in their 8th consecutive game where they've scored 3 runs or fewer. Well, you look at their pitching so far this year. It has been as good as any team in baseball. And if I was looking at it earlier this morning, I don't think they've scored 50 runs as a team yet. You got to look that up. Thought I read that earlier this morning. Nope, they've scored 46 runs so far this year.
Well, you compare that to the leader in the Major League Baseball. The Diamondbacks have scored 105 runs.
And in the American League, teams like Tampa Bay 93, Yankees 92, Seattle 90.
Reds have scored 92.
46 runs. They've only allowed 6. They've only allowed. They have the 3rd best pitching in the league. They've given up 60 runs in 18 games.
Sound like a Royals fan now, the way you articulate that.
I'm just saying, can you imagine how painful that is to watch? You're pitching like that. There are only 2 teams in the major leagues that have allowed fewer runs. In fact, there's no team that has allowed fewer earned runs. That ball bounced foul.
Well, the good news for the Royals are only 4 games under 500. I mean, with that kind of offensive slump, you'd figure that they would be, 8 games under.
Take a look at that. 46, 30, runs fewer than just the American League average for runs scored. 3-2 pitch.
Oh, wait a minute. Now Baltimore's on that list. Can we see that graphic again? Baltimore is on that list
because they're pitching better,
and they're 13-5.
Yep. Well, they've scored 22 more runs. That's over a run per game more. And they have the would you say 5th best pitching? Yeah, in the league. Baltimore's only allowed a total of 61 runs. What a play by Cozart.
And a heads-up play, too. First thing he does is checks the runner at third. That's why they got the infield in to cut the run off. Arcia is standing right there. He's not moving at all. But watch Cozart check, and then from his knees takes his time and throws the runner out. Boy, that's a good play.
Thames has been intentionally walked. He's been on base 4 times tonight.
Looks like Thames falls into the same category as Lorenzen as far as the body goes. See those guys hanging out at Venice Beach.
Up or down the first and right under the glove of Votto. Pretty alert play right there made at second base by Studer Gennett. Still got the out at first.
Well, maybe Joey just trying to give his teammates a chance to shine.
Run does score. Reds now trail by 5. So Lorenzen has now been scored upon in 3 of his last 5 outings. Domingo Santana has been on base twice, 2 walks, 2 runs scored. Lorenzen has just not looked sharp in his last 2 or 3 outings. Now you can say, well, you're coming into a game, your team's down 4 runs, and you would be correct in that assessment. But you know, he had a little bad luck here in this inning on a strikeout where the ball hit home plate and the runner reached, and that's the only reason that last ground ball wasn't the final out of the inning. But what I mean is crisp, getting ahead, strike 1, strike 2.
Not what you're expecting out of Michael Lorenzen.
High tapper. Could be tough play. Good play by Cozart. Santana, for a big fella, can get up the line. Brewers get a run, and the Reds will back down 5 in the 9th. All righty, gentlemen, we'll look forward to getting together with you here shortly. Take a look at that. Are you a juggler? Are you a juggler?
I'm not. I've never even been a juggler in the bullpen, which is where most people learn, or most guys anyway, who pitch. That's pretty good.
It is pretty good.
How about you?
No. No. Of course, that could be worked in a number of different interpretations. Here's a guy throwing the ball well. Jacob Barnes. Barnes has yet to surrender a run this season. 10 1/3 innings, 3 hits, 4 walks, 12 strikeouts. Opponents just 3 hits in 34 at bats against Jacob Barnes. He'll face Duvall, followed by Suarez and Shepler. High fly ball, should be out number 1. Keon Broxton over to get it. I would imagine they'll give the win in this game to Martinez. He went an inning and a third. He only allowed one run, but the starter Garza only went 4. Had someone come in behind Martinez and thrown multiple innings. An official scorer could award the win to somebody else, but I would imagine Martinez is really your best bet. He went longer than anybody else out of the pen tonight. And Amir Garrett is in line for his 2nd consecutive loss and his first poor outing as a major league pitcher. Just a tough night.
And you hope you're around long enough to have a few of those, because it's bound to happen.
Yeah, in fact, you had made that comment the other night that Jake Arrieta gave up 5 the other day. And how about this? Arcia has not allowed a defensive miscue, not committed an error in 43 games coming into this one. And he's committed 2 of them now tonight. I tell you, his throws, we saw it in Cincinnati last week. He gets a little Hollywood with some of those throws.
Yeah, we're really kind of sloppy with this. He didn't need to rush it. Look how far Suarez was away from first base. He didn't need to rush that. He could have taken a step and thrown a more overhand.
Now that's the kind of thing I can assure you that Craig Counsell will address.
Well, he's the guy that is Mr. Fundamental.
Well, Shepler is really hitting the ball hard right now. That's a run-scoring double for Shepler. He has knocked in 4 runs here tonight.
There was
after
a time
knocking in 2 yesterday.
There was a time there the Shepler was having like 1 hit in about 15 to 18 at bats.
Right.
He was really, really cold. And then he started heating up the last couple of games against the Cubs, hitting the ball better. Had a bloop that fell in the other night that was his first hit in several games, and then that kind of got him going.
Yeah, it was a broken bat. Remember that? That
Yeah.
flare to left field. And you had said at the time, maybe that's what will get Shepler going.
Well, you always say that. Most of the time it doesn't work.
You never know. Cozart has had an outstanding game. Triple, run scored, walked twice, double, 3 runs scored in the game, and made a beautiful play at shortstop in the bottom of the 8th inning. So
Made a
Barnes
couple of
finally
really
gives
nice
up a run.
plays.
Yeah.
Barnes is a guy that essentially I think has been given the closing spot. He picked up the save the other night in the one game that they won against the St. Louis Cardinals. That was after one day after Neftali Feliz gave up 4 runs in a collapse performance against the Cubs. Craig Counsell gave Barnes the ball, and he ended up getting him a save.
There are not many fans left here tonight that were here originally when this one got underway. Cozart retired for the first time tonight. Tucker Barnhart will come pinch hit. Well, you know what though? Stuart Turner had a nice night at the plate tonight.
He sure did.
That's by far his best game as a major leaguer. He had 2 doubles, 2 runs batted in, also drew a walk. So good for Stuart Turner. You know, there have been some whispers that when Devin Mesoraco comes back, there is a chance the Reds, so as not to lose Turner, and Jim Day brought this up earlier, would they consider carrying 3 catchers on their roster? Now, the danger of that is pretty obvious. None of those players plays another position. It's one thing if you've got a guy that can catch, but he can play somewhere else. Reds floated around last year with the idea of Mesoraco playing some left field, and Billy Hatcher was the first to say, you know, we were watching him during batting practice where he was in left field playing balls as though it were a real game. And I was amazed watching Mesoraco run around out there, and Billy Hatcher has said he believes Mesoraco could do it, but they've never tried it. Barnhart has said as many times as anybody would listen that he would be willing to play anywhere they ever asked him to play. I've been on the Caravan with him the last number of years, and he has said that so many times he's turned blue in the face.
Well, it really comes down to what would the Reds do in a rebuilding year in order to keep a catcher that they've drafted in the Rule 5 draft in their organization.
Ball driven down the left field line. That's foul ball.
Now that may mean, you know, making a deal with the Minnesota Twins, and maybe the Twins, you know, there's a price to everything. I mean, you want Stuart Turner? All right, give us so-and-so. No, we don't want to give that guy up, but we'll give you this guy instead, or these 2 other players. So there's a likelihood that there's a deal to be made out there, unless the Twins feel like they've made such a mistake in letting him go that they just really want him back, and that's it.
Game over. Barnhart strikes out to end it, and the Brewers win the opening game of this 3-game series 11-7 is the final. Back with more in a moment.